Okay, so I've spent the last 3 days preparing for Avatar The Way of Water by watching all 3 seasons of Avatar The Last Airbender. Will it pay off? I hope so. I think I'm ready.
3 hours later.
It was the wrong Avatar.
What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Avatar The Way of Water is here after 13 years. I made a joke in my reaction video saying it was 30 years, and so many people were like, Austin, it wasn't 30. It was 13. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't know that. I had no clue this didn't come out in 1992. Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed on the extrasolar moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with the Neytiri and the army of the Na'vi race to protect their home. This movie is rated PG-13 for sequences of strong violence, intense action, partial nudity, and some strong language. Avatar going crazy. If you guys are here and you want to support this channel, the best way to do that is by dropping that like down below. And be sure to comment what is your favorite James Cameron movie. Just some quick thoughts about the first Avatar film, a movie that I watched in the theater, and as everybody else in 2009, was it? I was blown away. I walked out in awe because I had never seen anything like that visually before. Now, you look back and on subsequent rewatches, the story is not as impactful as it was on first watch. And it makes me think, was I just so blown away by the visuals, I didn't realize that it's kind of a conventional and cliche story. That being said, I still enjoy the first Avatar. It wasn't in my top 10 of the year, but it's still one that I go back to and I'm really impressed by because it changed filmmaking. It changed the box office, and James Cameron has devoted his life, essentially now, to telling these stories. I mean, there are numerous other Avatar movies planned after The Way of Water. So was the 13-year build-up worth it? Was the time spent on developing the story and technology worth it when the movie started playing? And I saw the film 48 frames per second, Dolby 3D. And that's my first time seeing anything in Dolby 3D, and I haven't seen a 3D movie in years because, frankly, 3D hurts my eyes. If I take my glasses off, I'm blind as a bat. And I just don't really respond to 3D films because they kind of give me a headache, right? So I went into this like, okay, 3-hour movie, 13-year build-up, and it's going to be in 3D if I can figure out how to do my glasses. We usually start with a story. We're not doing that. I want to start with 2 very specific points. I almost said one. The first one is you have to see it in the theater. You have to see it on the biggest screen possible, because without that, you would not get the full experience, the intended experience of what this film is and what it's supposed to do. Number 2, I'm actually going to recommend the 3D, and I've never done that, ever. Even the original Avatar, I saw it in 3D and I liked it, but it wasn't as immersive as I wanted it to be, right? Just seeing it on a big screen was good enough. With this one, I think that will be good enough. I believe seeing this in IMAX or in Cinemark XD is going to blow you away. But the 3D added an extra dimension to it that made it unlike anything I've ever experienced in a theater. And it sounds like hyperbole. It feels like I'm making it up, just me saying that out loud. And I wasn't the only one. I had a very small press screening, and everyone walked out kind of on the same page, like, that's worth seeing in 3D. And all of the reactions that I've seen from peers in the industry, everyone's kind of nodding their heads saying, is that the one that we're going to have to recommend watching in 3D? And again, I usually don't do this, but I say you have to do it. Not only because the 3D works so well, let's just talk about the visuals. Let's talk about the technical elements of this film. Creating a world and world building, and that comes down to the story, and we'll talk about that makes this movie feel so authentic. They had the building blocks from the first one to where they could give us a compelling story, but they build off of that not only through the story, but through the visuals, taking us to other parts of this world, to other parts of Pandora, being able to explore backgrounds and scenery, obviously created by CGI, but a big part of it is the production design, the value of looking at what these landscapes are doing for the visceral experience itself and elevating it to a degree unlike, again, I've never really seen on the big screen before. And this is not me saying that's the best movie I've ever seen in the theater. That's not the case. But when you're talking about an immersive experience, that's a big reason why And the movie's called The Way of Water. What does water have to do with it, Austin? Well, the new tribe that they join, they're essentially like the Na'vi, but instead of being in the forest, they are next to the water, and they have adapted in ways that will kind of blow you away when you're watching. They know how to go under, hold their breath for a long time, to fight in the water. Jake Sully and his family, under the circumstances that they are in, they must adapt to this new tribe. They must learn the way of the water. And a big portion of this movie is this family learning. And because of that, you get a nice family dynamic in there that, again, elevated this in a way that I did not anticipate. The last film was full of some characters that I found interesting. I thought Stephen Lang crushed it in the first movie. I thought Worthington did a nice job as Jake. Zoe Saldana, you had Sigourney Weaver in there. Weaver's actually back in this film as Curie. She's playing this younger character, obviously covered in CGI, so she's able to do that. It did kind of take me out of the movie at times because she's playing a different character, but it's still Sigourney Weaver, and she had already played a character in the first movie, so I'm like, oh, that just kind of sounds... I mean, the voice was different, but it just kind of sounded like the character from the first film. All right, I was able to look past that. She kind of feels like one of the kids. They go on this adventure together, but they also have two boys, and there's this brotherly dynamic there, and one that at first I was questioning. I'm like, are we really going to focus on these younger characters maybe even more than the adult avatars? I don't know if that's the route you should go down, but the more we got into it, and we also have this human character by the name of Spider who fits in perfectly with this storyline. It's fairly obvious how he fits in at the beginning, to the point to where they just go ahead and tell us. There's not even a build-up for that big reveal. They're like, this is it. And I was like, okay. I wish there would have been more suspense there, but it's the dynamic between the younger characters. And when they join this water tribe, they're joined by other characters of that age. And that's where we are, I would say, throughout most of this movie with these characters. So we're able to see this through their perspective as opposed to the perspective that we saw in the first film. And that, to me, was really nice to see. Again, it's 3 hours, so you're going to have plenty of time to cut back and forth between the good guys and the bad guys. And you guys know Stephen Lang is back in this film, and I'm not going to tell you the exact part that he plays, but I will tell you that it's a very similar vibe that we got from the first, so obviously he's going to crush that because he is really good as an actor, and he's the type of guy that you look at and you're just like, I'm scared of this man. And to be honest, I feel like the combination of the lengthy 3-hour runtime and so many characters to kind of parse our way through and so many storylines to pick up on. If we go 20 minutes without checking in on these guys over here, well, obviously the movie's going to have to cut over there eventually. Thankfully, I feel like we didn't leave too many plot points to the side for too long. We would always cut back when we needed to, but there are points in the film when we're going from here to over there to over here. So I do feel like they were overdoing it even for a 3-hour movie at times. And I talked about in my reaction how there are cliches and conventions in this script, and that's absolutely the case. Do we get anything as on the nose as unobtainium in the first film? Do we get anything that is maybe as cliche as some of the character actions of the first movie? There are obvious times when you have this coming-of-age vibe and the kids are scoffing at the parents, and I'm not even saying the dynamic between these two brothers is all that original, but it is more compelling than I expected it to be. And even though I wasn't necessarily here for the story at the beginning of the movie, even through the first act, right? We pick up where the last one left off. They give us a bit of a rundown. Okay, here's what you missed. Here's where we are. And then it all goes down fairly quickly in this film. So you don't have a lot of time to maybe get as sucked in the world as you need to be, but the action sucks you in. It really gets you on board. And once you're on board, even with that 3-hour runtime, I don't feel like a lot of people are going to struggle with this story maybe as much as you even anticipated from my reaction video. Again, I try to point out as many things as I can. And even though there are cliches in this story, as there are most big blockbusters like this, it always manages to stay afloat. With a visceral moment here, an amazing action scene here, or that score, taking from James Horner's score in the first film, rest in peace, obviously, but giving us moments that feel so just impactful and emotional through the music and through what you're seeing on that big screen. The only time I really had a problem with the visuals, and it wasn't even a big issue, some people are going to struggle with the 48 frames per second. I get that. I completely understand it. Again, my eyes, They hurt sometimes, but I never struggle with that. It did sort of make a few of those Na'vi on Na'vi action sequences look a little video game-ish, but even then, I'm still impressed, intrigued, and I'm in awe of what's happening on this big screen. The textures on these characters, the hair, the way that they're walking around in front of these incredible landscapes, in front of this incredible background, man. Again, I was just so consistently blown away with what I was seeing on the big screen. And is that not why you want to go to the theater? You know, even if you do have story issues, and I may have had one or two, but not nearly as many as I had with the first film. And this was so much more of an experience. And I don't say that knocking down the first Avatar movie. Obviously, we've come a long way with the visuals. 13 years, you have an opportunity to correct some of the mistakes that the first movie had, but also bring us new elements. And I know they've been working on that underwater technology for a long time. And you can tell. Whenever they're underwater, you're holding your breath with the characters, and you can't look away. I could not look away from the screen. I have a small bladder. I struggled finding points to go to the bathroom. And when I did, I had to look over at my fellow movie critic and say, hey, what I missed it. You got to fill me in. Okay, it took me 30 seconds, but you got to fill me in.
That's what she said.
There are also some really nice unexpected themes in here that I thought added another layer to the story. There's some underwater characters that our main Na'vi characters, is that how you say it? Right? They befriend them, but at the same time, they're being hunted. So it's a nice storyline, but you're always kind of on edge as to what is going to happen. And you care about those characters so much, unexpectedly so, but once you see them, you're going to be in awe by them. And that adds another dynamic to the story that we already had. And then there's an intensity to the end, to the third act of this film. And you get that in the first Avatar movie. But there's another emotional layer, a level that the first film didn't hit. And I believe some will see some of these plot points coming when they come about in the third act, so that's unfortunate. But even then, they're still going to hit you regardless because they're pulling on those heartstrings. There's emotion there that you need in a blockbuster like this. If we wouldn't have gotten that, I don't know if I would have been as satisfied with the story. But you have 3 hours of build-up and then that impact, that gut punch at the end, and that worked oh so well. Yes, this is a long review, but hey, it's a 3-hour movie. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Before I give you my score, if you want to drop a like on this video, that would be awesome. And today's secret phrase of the day is, the Avatar is wet. So, comment, because they're in the water, like the movie. I don't know. You can comment that if you want. Avatar: The Way of Water is a stunning and somewhat mind-blowing visual experience. I had to catch my breath when the film ended. Story-wise, it is about what you expect, but the world building is monumental. Cameron has truly delivered an epic blockbuster. Take me back to Pandora. I'm going an 88% with my score. I'm excited to see this again, to see how it holds up upon rewatch, and I'm interested to see what happens when I watch it on a smaller screen, but I can tell you right now, this is a theatrical watch. Absolutely. Thanks so much for watching this review. Come back, Babylon review later this week.